Welcome to the Leading at the Next Level podcast with Dove Development Consulting, the show built to provide ongoing support for your leadership journey. I am Wes Dove, and I'm here today with Tom Kline, the author of Tuck The Octopus, a book that was just recently published, and I'm super excited about that. But before Tom and I dig into really some of the awesome work that he's done to help dealerships, auto dealerships specifically, be successful and profitable and avoid a lot of the risk that they're faced with on a routine basis, I'd like for Tom, if you're willing, I'd like for you to share a little bit about yourself, personal, professional, just to give the audience something that they can connect with and know who you are.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me, Wes. It's great to be here. I appreciate it. I am a third generation car guy. I was a dealership owner for 30 years. And then I opened up my consulting firm called Better Vantage Point. And I don't always have the best vantage point, but I probably have a better vantage point. So, and that ties in actually with our mutual friend Ryan, who says there is no best, there's only better. And that's his quote, and I obviously agree with that because I named my company after it, right? So I do consulting work for startups, tech companies, auto dealerships, who are looking to try to minimize their problems, mitigate their risks, understand what they're paying for in their insurance policies. That's kind of the world that I live in, and I'm a problem solver, and I'm a guy who tries to get things handled for my clients. So that's a little bit about me.
So how about on the personal side, family, anything there that anybody listening can really hear, hey, man, I connect with that. I'm kind of in the same spot in life or have some similarities and so on.
I love my wife and I love being with her. That's something that you don't hear necessarily very often. No judgment here, but she travels for her work also. And we endeavor to spend as much time together as we can. One of the things, for example, we do is we try to schedule and coordinate our outbound flights. So we both go to Atlanta together, and then we go off our separate ways depending on where it is. So we get that extra time together. So I have a son who's 23 who lives in Connecticut, and I have a house about an hour from where you are, Wes. And I am moving to Baltimore, Maryland here the first week of November from Norfolk, Virginia. So that's
wow. Well, Tom, I appreciate you saying that. You've not met my wife yet, Cindy, but she and I work directly together. We've been married for 24 and a half years. And yesterday we did a keynote session for an industry association. And one of the folks come up and says, gosh, it's neat to watch you all do that. I don't know that I could work with my spouse. I'm thinking, shit. I hate hearing that because it's one of the biggest blessings in my life to be able to do what we do together. And I'm not going to pretend like it's easy, but we're thankful for it, right?
So, yeah.
So Tom, I'm reading through. I've got your book in front of me that Ryan gave me when we met in person just a few weeks, and you signed it. And I really appreciate that. What led to doing it? I just finished my second book. I published my first one earlier in the year, and I'm doing through the copy editing. And dear God, it's a lot of just painful detail stuff that I don't like. What prompted you to write the book, and talk about the name? It's written in the back. I know why you wrote it that way, but talk about why you named it Tuck the Octopus, because I'm sure a lot of people here are like, what the heck is that?
Right. So yes, it's a process, right? I mean, it takes a long time. This took me 5 years to write and to get published. So Tuck the Octopus is an analogy about what it feels like to run a dealership, right? The anxiety that you have, the worry you go through, the what's going to happen next, am I going to have enough revenue? All those anxieties can be paralyzing for some people. And if not paralyzing, it can certainly be an impediment to running a successful business. And so Tuck the Octopus says, hey, in order to run a business, it feels like trying to tuck an octopus into bed and the tentacles keep flopping all over the place, right? And so my job as a consultant is help you tuck those tentacles in and make sure that everything feels like it's under control. And for those things that you're worried about, we develop plans and policies and procedures and make sure that you have a way to go, so that it alleviates that anxiety and that worry that business owners have about, well, what happens if, and so that what if, we go through this exercise of what if this happens and what if that happens and what would you do? So that's where the title comes from.
Well, you may have seen me chuckle as you said that, the tucking it in. I'm picturing a toddler. I mean, Cindy and I have 6 grandkids, and I'm picturing the 6-year-old specifically, because he's kind of and just wide open, and even our 1.5-year-old grandson, when you pick him up and he doesn't want to, he's kicking and trying to get away, and that's probably what it's like. Now, Tom, something you just said is all those risks, and Cindy and I are focused in. Now, I was in HR and safety for a long time, so risk avoidance was a big part of my life, right? And the compliance and the things that go along with both of those facets. Today, we do a lot in leadership development, workplace communication, and something that we stress all the time, and it really comes back to something you said, is if somebody takes on the responsibility for leading, running a business, whatever it is, there's lives that count on them. Every employee and their families, they count on them making good decisions. And the work you do helps mitigate a degree of that risk, so they can be really, really effective in taking care of those families that count on them for the bread and butter, right?
That's right. I mean, it's such a misnomer when people say, oh, you're your own business owner, you can do your own thing. And that's just not the case, because you have other people who depend on you, right? And so all of a sudden everybody says, well, you don't have a boss, where alternatively, you have all the bosses in the world, right? You've got your employees are bosses, your customers are your bosses. It's an unlimited number of bosses instead of maybe just one.
Yep. Yeah, Tom, I was at a job fair when I was still an HR and safety manager, and we started our business. We're just a few years in, so I'm burning the candle literally both ends. I'm working 100 hours a week plus between the two. And somebody comes up to me at this job fair and says, hey, I think I want to do what you're doing on the side. It looks really fun. And I said, hey, if you're willing to invest every ounce of time that you've got spare outside of your full-time job to take 0 revenue for the first 3 or 4 years, then I think it's a fantastic idea. You should do that. If you're not, maybe you don't. And today, as we run our own business, you know this, we get to work half days, any 12 to 14 hours we want.
Exactly.
But praise God for it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's just not, let's kick back and relax. You better have your game face on.
For me, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. are my normal office hours.
Yeah. And hey, I wouldn't change a thing, but no one's half the battle is what G.I. Joe told me. So when we were in Ryan's office, when we met first in person just a few weeks ago, you shared a story about a crazy situation that I almost expected you to say, hey, this was a politician. It wasn't. It was one of the folks that worked for you in your dealership that had potential for tremendous negativity. And you can share as much as or as little as you want about the specifics of the situation. But what I pulled from it is how you took that risk head on, and you went to the news media that were really chomping at the bit to do a lot of negative press around it, and you owned it and you handled it. And now how you help folks think through, even if they're different situations, how they handle the risks, specifically with publicity that could be negative and so on. Do you share as much or as little as you want about that? That was a powerful story.
I mean, let's start by talking about what the biggest risks are in any business. And that's what I call the two-legged risks. And the two-legged risks are your employees and your customers, right? And if you're handling those two different, groups, then you're going to mitigate, I'm going to say 70% of the risks that you have. If you've got policies and procedures and open door and how to have people be able to come in and in a free way, be able to say, hey, I have a problem, super important, both for customers and employees. So that's the place that you start. In this particular case, without getting into an hour-and-a-half discussion on this particular item, sometimes the solutions are never the obvious ones. And in this particular case, I'll just give all your viewers here a tidbit as to the media. First of all, if you're a public-facing company, if you're a B2C company, this is more important than a B2B company, right? So business to consumers, if you're dealing with a lot of consumers a lot of the time, then you may have opportunity, or you may have a problem where the media shows up and they want to interview you about whatever the issue is. And most companies you'll see they go down one of two channels. Number one is, we're going to fight this vigorously and prove that we're not wrong, right? Or some form of that. And the other is the no comment. Those are really where the two kind of silos meet. And when you hear both, the first thing you think of is what? They're both guilty of whatever the thing they're being accused of, right? Doesn't matter which of those two you choose. You still think to yourself, oh, they did it. They're just trying to figure out what to say, right? In this particular case that you're talking about, again, without going into the whole thing, I went to the reporter and said, hey, I'm happy to talk about the facts here. Let's talk about the facts. And then we'll talk about what we want to talk about, in terms of a statement. But we have to get down to the facts. We have to all agree on what the facts were, not allegations, not puffery, but really what happened. And if you're interested in talking about what happened, we can do that. And so I went to the reporter's office on multiple occasions and was able to essentially steer a situation where the company was not in the media at all, that the whole thing bypassed as a result of really laying down what the facts were. And kind of the subtext of that was, and if you're not going to talk about the facts and you're in the media, then you open yourself up to, libel and slander and all those things.
So, Tom, again, we work so much with the folks that have that leadership and that two-legged responsibility, right?
Right.
And that's a piece, I think, that translates to just about every aspect of leadership. And if we don't provide the detail, if we no comment, can't share anything about that, and we try to skirt the issues, people are going to make up their own narrative. And it may not be in the media, but it might be in our teams.
Right.
And my goodness, the reality is things happen, mistakes happen. And if we can get those facts, we can't fix it if we're not willing to acknowledge it. So I love how you talked through that. And you and Ryan and I talked more of the specifics. And again, it was a tough one. And you handled that masterfully. And it just provides such a great scenario for folks to learn from. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to.
So when Ryan talked about you, and he's telling me, hey, I need you to meet Tom. He's my risk coach. Share what that looks like and how you really help your clients think differently about the risks they're exposed to, whether it's through risks maybe they don't recognize that are even there, and that's a big deal, or overcoming the things that they're apprehensive of, but maybe they don't need to be as much.
Sure. So for any business owners who are watching, the first thing that I would encourage is not to get what I call a case of the yets. I haven't had a problem yet, so I'm not going to have a problem. I call that a case of the yets, because I promise if you're in business, it's going to happen. Whatever you think the thing isn't going to happen, it's going to happen. And so you need to be prepared for it. So when Ryan talks about me being a risk coach, it's a matter of uncovering, some of it is uncovering unknown problems. And secondary to that is in the risk mitigation piece is, do you have a plan if those things happen, whatever the thing is that you're concerned about? Do you have insurance that might cover that thing so that you would be indemnified and make sure that you don't have an enterprise ending event? And then if not, can you put a policy or a procedure in place to handle those problems before they become problems, to handle those issues before they become problems? And so that's what a risk coach does is goes in, identifies all of the potential problems that maybe you've never thought of. And they can be kind of vast and wide and different. And if I had $1 for every time somebody said to me, wow, I never thought of that, I would not be on your podcast today. I'd be retired.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, wow. So I worked in behavior-based safety for a long time, and it was not rules. It was more about what are the risks, and it was very focused. And I worked in a manufacturing environment, automotive sector actually, but we're doing sheet metal. And I remember folks saying, "Hey, if I would point out a risk, they'd say, it's a 1 in a million chance of that happening." But what I could do in so many cases, just like you said, it's not if, it's when. I could quantify, hey, that press cycles X number of times per hour. You run X number of hours per day. Here's how many times you do that same motion over the course of a year. And if it's 1 in a million times, I remember saying to one person, and I did those numbers. So you're telling me you're okay with that injury happening every 8 months? If it's 1 in a million chance.
Right.
Shit, no. I'm not telling you I'm okay with that. And it's really getting the framework around, and the significance of the injury could vary and so on and so forth, but that's what you do. It gives that perspective. So
100%, absolutely.
One of the things you and I connected with, I'm skipping around a little bit on the questions I've written out to keep me in line. When we did our keynote yesterday, I had some note cards, and I said, guys, these are for you, not for me. The questions I've gotten written down are for everybody watching. You and I could do this for a day and a half, but we want to make it concise.
That's right.
One of the things that we connected with, and I absolutely loved it when you said it, was your focus on making sure that everybody that you interact with can capture a measurable return on investment through applying what you share, whether it's a client that you're on site, you're paid, and you're doing the consulting work with, or it's somebody that's just paid $20 or $25, whatever, for your book. You want them to walk away with practical, applicable things they can use to help them be better off in their business. I've seen far too many consultants over the years kind of go into the dairy industry and see how much they can milk and not really give a shit about what they're doing to serve people. And boy, that makes me angry.
Right. There are a lot of books, Wes, as I'm sure you know, written by consultants who the only point of the book is that they want you to call them, right? I mean, that's the point of the book. And so when I started writing this book, I said, that's not me. That's not how I roll. I want to provide value. And I actually had somebody call me yesterday before they bought the book and said, hey, if I'm not in the automotive business, will I get anything out of it if I bought it? And I said, yes, there is a lot in there, obviously, because my focus is automotive, though I do other industries as well. But there are a lot of lessons in there that are transferable. And so anybody who buys the book, I want, it's very much an ABC, how to do things, ABC 1, 2, 3, and you should be able to take away, something actionable from almost every one of the chapters. And there's 53 chapters in there. So I imagine that even if you did every other chapter, you can come up with a good 20 or so things that you should consider in your business.
Well, and I love it. The chapters have fantastic titles. As I was glancing through that, hey, they're great titles. They're catchy. They're fun. You just kind of scratch your head. Where's he going with this one? Short, they're concise, and what you just said was you should be able to pull something away from every chapter. And when Cindy and I wrap up a lesson, the number one challenge is, I don't care how many notes you took. I do care that you do at least one thing from what you wrote down. If we resonated with you, I need you to apply one thing that you can measure the results in your business, because without the results, my goodness, we should have had a V8. Remember the commercial, the guy's walking sideways. You got to get results. There's no trees that the free crap grows on. If you're in business, we need to be profitable, right?
100%.
I think our space, while it's a different focus, you've referenced it. I think we complement one another so well, and that's why I'm so excited to develop the friendship and so on. A lot of work we do focuses on the people that have been masters of the technical aspects of their field, whether it's engineering or manufacturing or construction or healthcare or whatever. They're good at the doing, right? And that they get rewarded with moving into a position where they have responsibility for supervising or managing a team. And they run into different issues, and those are the two-legged issues. How does that relate to the automotive dealership world? And what you said about your two biggest problems, 70% of the problems you said are our customers and our employees. How do those things coexist? And how do we get to lock arms and help people solve those problems?
Yeah, it's a great question, Wes. And my answer is probably going to be different than everybody else's, because everybody's got a different perspective on this. my perspective on managing and how you manage is you have to, you're with those people more than you're with your spouse, and you're with those people more than you're with your family. And so you have to care about them, and you have to show that you care about them. And in my opinion, if you're not letting them off work at 4 o'clock to go, see the soccer game of their son, and you want them to just grind through every day, that you're not going to have loyalty. You're not going to have productivity in your employees. When they come in the morning and you greet them, if they've had a bad day or a bad night. You can just look at their face and tell, right? And so, do you address that? My answer is yes. To say, hey, you look like you had a rough night last night. Are you okay? What's going on? And help them as much as you can through whatever they're going through. And that's what a caring boss does. I'm sure you've heard the phrase a million times. People quit bosses, not companies, right? And that's what that's about. I mean, you're either going to be a jerk or you're not going to be a jerk, and you're going to be a good boss. And you, as a manager, you have to decide what kind of manager you want to be, and then carry forward.
100%. We built a 2 half-day course around that idea. It's a recruitment, retention, and culture course, but the subtitle is A Leader's Guide to Building a Great Team. And so often with the name of recruitment, retention, culture, people think, oh, that's for HR professionals. And I would say they will gain value, yes, but it's for anybody with supervision or management responsibility. If they've got people, they need to understand how much they impact the recruiting good people and keeping good people.
Because a really good manager, Wes, doesn't need HR.
100%. Yeah. Right. And that's probably why I don't always play nice in the HR space, because, hey, it's not about compliance. It's about people. When I moved into HR, I thought, hey, I'm going to develop the human resources. Well, that's not what it's usually about. It's about checking stupid boxes. And I understand the need for it, but if we take care of the people, the boxes usually get checked on their own, right?
Correct.
One of the things listed, and it's a subtle list on the back of your book, but it's not, it's critical in what you just said. It's emotional intelligence. Talk about how you tie that into so much. I could probably go for an hour with you on that alone, but talk about that, and I'll try to contain myself a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, business, if you're in business, you're in the people business. Unless it's a very unusual business, you are in the people business. So just like we talked about a few minutes ago, if you're not relating to your employees in a way that they understand that you care, that you will help them, then you're not doing yourself any good. And you do that through emotional intelligence. And if you haven't heard that term, or this is the first time you're listening about emotional intelligence, I mean, there are various ways to self-assess immediately. One is, what do your employees think about you? You're either in a position that it's kind of two different silos, right? They know or they don't. Sorry, you know what they think or you don't know what they think. If you know what they think, then you can be working on gaining their trust and trying to help. If you don't know, then you're in the position that you don't know, so you got to start. And you start by starting, and the way you start is you sit down and you have a conversation and say, how are we doing? How are you and I doing? Forget that I'm your boss. How are you and I doing? And then having a real conversation about it.
I've read a ton on it because, again, behavior-based safety was a significant portion of my career. So I've read a lot, but I've always been frustrated. I'm not a smart guy, Tom. I'm the guy that needs the cookies on the low shelf. How can it be simple? How can I apply it to get results? And Cindy and I do a ton of work using, and bear with me here, the DISC model of human behavior, not because the assessment is magical. If you take a good one, there's a bunch out there. Some aren't worth the paper they're printed on. But if you understand how people behave and you understand there are patterns and you can simply apply it, I believe it's the most fantastic tool that we can use for intentionally increasing our emotional intelligence, because the components of emotional intelligence are self-awareness, self-management, others awareness, relationship management, right? But if I can't manage myself, if I don't understand myself, there's no way I can do any of the four.
Of course.
And we've worked hard to be able to connect those dots so we can do exactly what you said. And it just grabs me that you're looking at the same things. How do I help mitigate risk? And it's fun. I look forward to the relationship building over time, because I think we're going to get to do some cool stuff together.
Yeah.
If you tolerate me, I'm kind of high strung most of the time. What's your favorite thing about what you do?
I get to help. I get to help people be more successful. Number one, and I guess, the kind of the my interior monologue is I get to help people keep the money they make, right? Because that's what risk mitigation is all about, is helping people keep the money they make. If you're making a ton of money in the front, but you're paying a ton of money out the back, you're not keeping any of the money you make, and you're on a treadmill, and that's very unpleasant. But helping people understand where the risk lies and where the pitfalls are, and I guess if I ever had a superpower, a superhero power, it would be that I can see what to do like 15 steps ahead to prevent a problem from happening. And if you do have a problem, I can also see the same way and how to get them resolved from a business perspective.
And I'm going to speak out of turn, and I'm going to guess it's probably a lot of that, maybe not all. You're an incredibly intelligent guy, but I'm guessing a lot of that comes because you've walked down that path and you've worked really, really hard to learn what to look for.
I've had the crap kicked out of me over 35 years. Yes. Yes, you can say that I've had the crap kicked out of me. So I know, because I've had the crap kicked out of me. I've been there. I've had to deal with the media. I've had to deal with lawsuits and lawyers and class actions, and how to litigate and how not to litigate and what to do, and who's a good lawyer and who's not, and what makes a good lawyer and why not. And there's so many components of problem solving that's how I am why I am.
Yeah. And hey, so much of Cindy and I've been blessed with great mentors, but we've also had a lot of experience, and the experience, I've heard people say, hey, if you're going to be stupid, you better be tough.
If you're going to be dumb, you better be tough.
Yeah. So one of the things you shared with me, your books are available wherever books are sold, right?
Correct.
And so Amazon, wherever else, you took some steps that I wasn't patient enough. Let me say it that way. I wasn't patient enough to do in my process to make sure yours could be wherever, and good on you. What would you like to share in some parting thoughts to make sure people know who you are, how to access you, why they should reach out to you? What value does Tom Kline add and Better Vantage Point when they've got an issue?
Yeah, I mean, I solve problems. That can be a 1 hour problem, or it could be a 1 year problem. Sometimes problems take a long time to get resolved depending on the nature of them. So I'm happy if anybody wants to reach out and call. You can reach me on my cell phone, which is 757-434-7656. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on TikTok. I have a YouTube channel under Better Vantage Point. So it's youtube.com/Better Vantage Point. You can go to my website, Better Vantage Point. You can go to my website at Tuck The Octopus. I'm an easy guy to find.
And the reality is that's because we want to help people. We want to help people fix their problems. And we're in the same space. Naturally, Tom, I don't want to do social media. I don't want to do this. There's other crap that I need to do. But if people don't know we can help them, they don't know we can help them, right? So
that's right.
That's why we need to do what we do.
That's it.
Tom, is there anything else you would like to share before we wrap up the live stream and call it a day?
No, I appreciate you having me on. It's been my pleasure, and I hope we do it again and can get into some nitty gritty on some of the topics that business owners are facing. If you have a question, like I said, just pick up the phone and call. I have my phone right here on LinkedIn. You'll notice I have a red phone after my name, and that's because I try to answer my phone whenever possible.
Outstanding. Well, hey, I appreciate it. If you'll hang with me to end the recording, I'll give you some of the behind the scenes specifics about getting you the feeds and so on. And appreciate the time. And guys, again, Tom Kline, Tuck the Octopus, and gosh, rave reviews. And I'm super excited about the relationship that we're able to start building with Tom, and just love seeing the impact he makes. Thanks for being with us. Make it a great day. God bless.
Thanks, Wes.
Yes, sir.